What's up, YouTube? In this video, I'm gonna go through the entire process of having a baby in China, from conception all the way up to birth, coming up. Now, I decided to make this video because I had to go through the whole process and welcome my new daughter that was born about 2 weeks ago from shooting this video. My experience for having a baby in China was in public hospitals in Guangzhou, which is a tier 1 city, so it could be different for different cities in China. And just to note that if you have public health insurance in China, you can cover a lot of your costs during the whole process. If you don't have public health insurance and you work for somebody in China, you can refer to the link up there and I'll put it down in the description below. Now, the first step I'd recommend before even considering having a baby in China is to find the right hospital. You can easily search around your area in Baidu Maps. You can simply search 妇女儿童医院 or 妇产科, which are mainly known for hospitals to give birth. Now, all the hospitals here can support giving birth, but you might want to talk to a Chinese friend about hospitals that are reputable and are known for their best services in the city you're in. In my case, I went to the most known public hospital in Guangzhou. I also suggest you make appointments in advance to the different kind of hospitals just to kind of see how it is and to see if they're foreigner friendly. For example, it's good to ask if you can be inputted into the system using your passport or your spouse's passport to have a smooth process from start to finish once you start getting checkups and all that. The second step is to register in the hospital. As I mentioned before, you want to check beforehand if they're foreigner friendly. Typically, a good rule of thumb is that the bigger the hospital and the more well known, the more foreigner friendly they're likely to be. In my case, most of the transactions were done through an application of the hospital. You just simply download the application and you put in your ID card and then you're in the system. So my wife first did that the first day and she was able to handle all her appointments, all her schedules, all the payments, paying for medicine and all that through the application. You can simply go to the nurse's desk and ask them, how can you apply with a passport to be a part of this application? Because it makes the process a lot easier in the future. The third step is to plan your schedule. So as you know, there's 3 trimesters in a pregnancy and birth. For the first trimester, we had like routine checks, maybe some ultrasounds that the doctor recommended. And then as we got into the second and third trimester, the testing became a lot more thorough and detailed for both the baby inside my wife and my wife. After you got into routine checks for the 3 trimesters, then you plan for the birth, which is when they either induce your wife or she's going into labor and you take her to the hospital. Something to note, I just want to clear any rumors out there, is depending on the public hospital that you go to, it may be super crowded, so just expect that you may not have that much privacy. They actually had a requirement in our hospital that only one visitor can be with your spouse or the wife the whole time. So if your spouse's parents or your parents wanted to be there at the visiting room while she was giving labor or anything like that, that's a no-go. Also, something to note that if you want more privacy, like if you don't want to be in a room stuck of 3 or 4 people, then you must be willing to pay a little bit more. Either give them a home bao or sign a contract saying, I want a bigger room to have more privacy with my wife. I paid for like the most expensive package just so I can be with my wife through the whole thing, especially in the living room. Just note that there's a specific line that once you pass that line and you get into the living room, you're probably gonna have to wear some kind of a getup, like a quarantine getup, as you can see right here in the photo, to accompany your wife when she's actually giving birth. I do want to disclose in my situation, there weren't like 2 or 3 girls giving birth at the same time, all yelling, trying to give birth to the baby. We had our own private room and all that. And again, as I mentioned, if you want to be more private in an area like a public hospital in China, be willing to pay a little bit more cash. After you give birth, expect 1 to 2 days stay at the hospital. You can expect these rooms to have between 1 to 4 patients in each. And again, the same rule applies, maybe only 1 visitor at a time. They may allow 2 or 3. But after 2 days, the staff is going to push you to get out of the hospital because there's a backlog of more spouses that need a room to stay. So you already gave birth to the hospital, right? Well, you're not done yet. You have the 4th step, and it's the admin requirements. So this is really important if you're a foreigner. When you apply for the birth certificate, both the husband and wife need to be there. In my case, because I need to register our daughter to have a US passport, the birth certificate must have both an English and a Chinese name. Otherwise, the US consulate will not take the application and I'll have to go through all the paperwork to change the birth certificate into English. So after you give birth to the baby, make sure you can work a deal with the hospital, maybe give them a home bao, but you need to clearly state that their name needs to be both in English and in Chinese so that the admin paperwork afterwards is easy and can be dealt with in a timely manner. As for before giving birth, especially in a public hospital, there tends to be some red tape, I would say. So the best prepare yourselves, if you're both foreigners or if one is Chinese and a foreigner, is to prove to the hospital that you're both married. I had to get my marriage certificate notarized, and then I had to register my wife and her hukou saying that she's a married person to me, and then the hospital recognized, okay, they're a married couple. Just realize that if both of you are foreigners and your baby's born in China, does not mean they're gonna get a green card, does not mean they're gonna be a Chinese citizen. Doesn't work that way in China. You're gonna have to go to your respective consulate to start processing the proper citizenship for your baby. Now I'm gonna talk about the differences of the cost of having a baby in China. Specifically the difference between a public hospital, which is in a well-known hospital in China, and a private hospital. So over the entire journey of me and my wife having a baby, we started annotating the expenses from day one. So you can expect regular checkups to be about 30 RMB each month, which is just saying I want to see a doctor, and the doctor looks at you and gives you some advice or some instruction. Then every ultrasound we did was about 230 RMB. Full baby check, so like very detailed check of the baby's heart rate and their vitals and all that, was 2,000 RMB, and we had to do that 2 times. Routine body check for my wife was 100 RMB. Full body check, which is a lot more detailed, talking about her blood sugar, her urine, was 1,100 RMB. We had to do that 2 times. The birth cost for the actual staff to help my wife give birth was 12,000 RMB. The overnight room cost after she gave birth could be between 2,000 and 3,500 RMB per night. The more you pay, the more privacy you get. So the overall cost in our situation, and I'm not saying it's going to be the same for you, but just to give you an idea how much it would cost, was 28,000 RMB. Of those 28,000 RMB, we had to pay 17,000 RMB out of pocket, and the other 11,000 was paid out of the public insurance that my wife had. So if you go to a public hospital and you have public insurance, you can expect the insurance to cover 30 to 40%, which is not that expensive. So we also looked at a private hospital. I'm actually in a private hospital now for the postpartum care. It was a total of 100,000 RMB for the whole journey. They just give you a whole package. We'll do everything from start to finish, even from the room afterwards, and here it is, 100,000 RMB. So you can see the differences of the cost, and public health insurance may not cover any of the expenses here. You may have to invest in private health insurance, which I'll make a video about in the future. Now my next video is going to be about the traditional postpartum care in China, which is also known as yueze, and it's pretty much a month or 2 after birth that the wife and the child get taken care of. They pretty much get pampered either in a hotel or a hospital, and it's actually been a really good experience because I have been part of the package that they offered, so I can stay in the same room as my wife and my child. If you're thinking about having a baby in China, whether you're a foreigner or married to a Chinese person in China, let me know down below what your plan is. Or if you already had a child, how it went for you in a public hospital in China, because I'm sure it's very different than my experience. Now, if you're a foreigner, you want to have a better lifestyle in China, whether you're coming here to live or coming here as a tourist, consider subscribing to my channel. And if you found some value from this video, please hit that like button. Anyways, keep surviving, and I'll catch you in the next one.